White matter actually in China. They didn't get stuck. It was just. I remember on Christmas Day, I was North America, so they didn't get stuck. Christmas Day. Everybody got it. I don't know. You have. I'm sorry. Then I saw the show. I did. I don't know what we done. I go to school when they got high.
Hey, it seems like most everybody is back. So everybody had a stress-free lunch. Didn't start off Sunday. Okay. So housekeeping for this afternoon. Went around and replaced your pink flyers with yellow flyers. Yellow flyers have this afternoon's attendance in the top couloir, and then the presentation in the bottom couloir. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and get started with this afternoon, which will be the digital SAT and PSAT and NMSQT, which I like to call this what. So let's go ahead and get started. Again, the attendance link, if you need it, use the QR code, is there for you, as well as the live Q&A. So you can drop any of your questions into the live Q&A. Did we want to do introductions again? Yes. Yes. Okay. Yeah, and we'll split. Alright, so I'll introduce myself and then we'll quickly do introductions. My name is Lauren Schaffner. I'm the manager for the district-wide testing coordinator team. Our director is. Hi, I'm Carla Bowman. Welcome to the work we do for you. for TJ, Temple, Lincoln, Scott, Sunset, Madison, Beaver Patterns, as well as Northway, Armory, Gillon, Coracalba.
Morning, everybody. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Felicia Kendall, Dr. Sarah Brown Adams, Adams, Tech, Molino, Rizzo, Wilson, Carter, Bobberman, Miami, Washington, Waters, and Black.
And then our other district wide testing coordinator is out of the room at the moment. She is Angela Warner. She supports most of those campuses that were not mentioned. Kimberly, do you want to introduce yourself? Oh, sorry, Keisha too.
Hi again, Keisha Pearson.
And then Dan Martin will be joining us in just a little bit to do the test security portion of this presentation. He is our test security officer. All right, just a couple of announcements for this afternoon. Your SSD request for PSAT NMSQT. Just a reminder that submitting the tracker was one part of the process. Second part of the process was making sure that you had an individual request submitted for each of the students on the tracker into the College Board SSD portal. Okay, so we want to make that crystal clear that both of those things had to occur. You mentioned that in the survey, in the presentation, but there's a link here. Of course, I'll put it in weekly and all that, but there'll be there's an administration date survey where you just have to go in and indicate which day you're planning on offering. You don't need to put in your makeup day, just put your primary date for administration. And that's going to be due on October 3rd. It's the same form if you're, whether it's PSAT NMSQT or PSAT 8-9. If you both on your campus, you'll fill out the same survey, or you'll just do both parts of the survey. Okay. All right, I'm going to pass it off. All right, today we're going to cover an overview of LMAT fall school day. Visual testing for NMSQT. We'll review test security and required training. Then we'll move into the pre-test day pass. Then we'll discuss campus plans, and we'll conclude with the after testing. So, in this section, we'll cover the overview and deadlines, the manuals, the standard and explicit findings, and compilations. First, let's talk about equivalent pay for PSAT NMSQT. That is all 10th grade students, and then grades 9 and 11 dollar sign scholars, and grades 9 and 11 avid students. You have the week of October 20th through the 24th to select a date to administer the assessment. Extensions will not be granted, so you need to select one day, which you guys are in high school. On the next slide, we're going to talk about fall education school day. And so the date wise to kind of combine the two, so we have to shut down once. But if you do have the flexibility to choose another date, that. Why is this important? It provides our students with scholarship opportunities, and as well as it links personalized practice to the Khan Academy, and then it satisfies our graduation requirements because the students, if they have a certain score, they're able to use that to replace one of their ELC assessments, as long as they tested at least once. Now looking at fall SAT school day, this is for our accelerated test for seniors. So that is with the students who completed an ELC, math, science, or reading course before they entered high school, so during 8th grade. These students must take the SAT or ACT during high school to fulfill the graduation requirements and to meet federal accountability standards. And then, again, I said that the specific day is Wednesday, October 22nd, and we do it for the same reasons, to provide scholarship opportunities, with individualized practice with Khan Academy, and then also, again, to satisfy the graduation requirements if they have satisfactory scores and have tested at least once during the week. The roster? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, you're asking for the students?
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah, well, yeah. So you did receive a spreadsheet with all of your students who are eligible. If you aren't sure about that, we'll help you locate that information. This slide is new, but this is an email which you may have received about the SAT waivers. So students can receive a fee waiver. You need to follow the information on the screen. But there are fee waivers. Alright, so let's take a look at some critical deadlines. September 2nd, as you know, was the date to request accommodations and NMSQT online. You had to upload your survey by, your accommodations tracker to the Qualtrics survey by September 5th. Today you're attending the CTC training. And we'll also discuss ordering and as they contact the SST and SSOR, which is the SAT and ordering registration dashboard. Beginning tomorrow, you can assign college board manuals based on your staff roles. On October 1st, you'll receive the split file for uploading, so you'll want to confirm that all the students who should be testing are listed. You'll remove any students who've withdrawn, and then you'll be able to see the information in the SSOR once the file is uploaded. So October 3rd will be your deadline to complete the College Board required module for TCCs. October 6th, that's when we'll register and validate students in the SSOR. And keep in mind, after you do that, within 24 to 48 hours, your students will appear in the test-based toolkit. And so then you'll be able to go in, you'll add your staff, assign roles and rooms, and confirm accommodations. October 8th is the deadline to train your campus staff who will provide a presentation. It will also need to complete the college board training module, so we'll talk more about that. October 8th, you also need to submit your test date to us, the training confirmation first. So after you train, you'll submit the confirmation to let us know that you trained. Then October 6th through the 17th, keep the readiness check. That's going to be within Bluebook. And October 20th through 24th is the testing window. We'll have support Zooms available every day that week. Then that week, October 22nd, mine is your SAT school day. And then by October 24th, the end of that week, we need to confirm students' answer submission. These are the fall manuals that applies to the SAT student assessment. So this includes your PSAT and SAT. On the left-hand side, you see the link to the test coordinator manual. That's going to include the test coordinator checklist, information on the visual readiness check, the accommodations guide, as well as your call and room semester essay guide, the troubleshooting guide, and also the Proctor Essential guide. So you want to make sure you review all of these resources because attending this training does not replace the requirement of reading the appropriate manual. Okay, so we just want to stress this. Most of the questions that you'll have, you'll find that information within the manuals, but it is required reading. And then failure to read the manual could result in an irregularity, possibly the potential dismissal of student scores. We don't want that to happen. Okay, so please make sure that you're taking the time to review all these resources and that your proctors are reviewing the proctor manual. That's linked on the right-hand side there. Within the proctor manual, you can find the student digital readiness check information on test day, and also the Proctor Essentials guide. When it comes to timing, the PSAT, NMSQT, and the SAT take 2 hours and 14 minutes with one 10-minute break. So you're going to have two sections, the reading and writing, and then the math section. Within each section, there's 2 modules. In between each module, there's a 5-minute break. Okay, so as you're planning your schedule, you're going to want to be aware of the timing, both for your standard time students and also the extended time, which we'll talk about on the next slide. Okay, you can see here, the total time would be 2 hours and 14 minutes, so 2 hours and 24 minutes with that 10-minute break. If you click the links at the bottom, you can see how the assessments are structured. All right, when it comes to extended timing, new this year, will be that students with extended time, so whether that be time and one half or double time or more, those students will be able to move forward once standard time has passed. So they no longer have to sit for their full extended time, but they must sit until the standard time is elapsed. Then they can move on. We encourage students to use the full time, but we know that some students may be finished and are ready to move on sooner, so that would be allowable. This applies for your students who have a college board accommodation request, so your SPED or 504 students, as well as your students who may have this as part of the UB accommodation or the EL support, and also students with the temporary students. You can find more information about the timing of breaks in the accommodated testing room section that's on page 57. Here's the slide on extended timing. So remember, you cannot break for lunch for PSAT or SAT. So you need to plan your schedule to allow time for the students with extended time to finish before you break for lunch. So keep in mind, looking at the slide, if the student has time and one half, then that's going to be a total of 3 hours and 22 minutes, plus the 10-minute break and the 2 5-minute breaks. All right, so think as you're counting back, what time you need to get started. Double time, obviously, you can see here, students would have 4 hours and 28 minutes, plus 30 minutes for breaks. So probably you don't have anybody with double time, but lots of people have time and a half. And then structured the same way, with the 5-minute break in between the modules and 3-minute break between the sections. If a student has extended time for math only, then they will receive a break after the first math module. And students with testing with double time on the entire test will have a longer 20-minute nutrition break. So the two tables here. Let's look further into our extended time and breaks. So again, you must plan your schedule to account for the students with extended time. Click the link on the top to see the timing considerations. In regards to the extended time, we know that now the students can move on once the standard time has passed. They don't have to sit for their full time, although they are encouraged to take the time which they need. The students are approved for extended time. They'll also receive extended time only for the sections impacted by their disability. So if it's math only, then they'll only receive that extended time for math. However, if it's reading, reading goes across all content areas, so it applies to both the reading and the math sections. And then in regards to breaks, there's 3 types of breaks. We have the extra breaks, and that would allow the students 2 additional 5-minute breaks between parts 1 and 2. Extended breaks gives them a longer 20-minute nutrition break between the math and reading, and then breaks as needed would allow them to pause and take a break throughout the assessment given as probability. Another note about the accommodations changes. So new this year, we saw that they have the accommodations and support dashboard, which if you added an email address and you requested accommodations in SSD, then students would be able to access that. Probably most of you did not do that, which is okay, and you'll still be able to provide it to their decision letters. But this will just allow them to sign on and see it themselves. And Blue Book is the testing application for the SAT suite of assessments. They now have an embedded speech, text-to-speech tool, so you don't have to use the third-party screen reader. You could have selected, and hopefully you did select, the embedded text-to-speech. You can see the assistive technology section on page 54, the test coordinator manual for more information. The embedded text-to-speech requires less setup, and so it's going to make it easier for you on test day because you're not going to have to configure devices, and it provides a more standard experience for the students. However, if they do need to use a third-party screen reader or other screen reader technology, they can do so. And maybe they need more support. So non-embedded tools, they read all the properties on the page, and they also give detailed descriptions of the graphics. So some students may still need that, and that's fine. You just want to make sure that that's what you requested in SSD online. And then the last note, we talked about this with the accommodations training, but students who are approved for the accommodations screen reader, so the non-embedded, the third party that they would use, if they need extended time, you would have to apply for that separately. It no longer comes automatically. So if you do have students who need non-embedded screen readers, you want to be sure if they need extra time, that you did request that. Some more changes for the fall. We have the temporary impairment support request, and so this would be for those last minute emergency students who would not normally have accommodations but find themselves in a situation where they need them. And then also there were changes to accommodation names. So they've just been updated to increase clarity and consistency with the digital testing. It doesn't change the accommodation and how it's provided. They'll still work the same way. So for example, the reading time in 1/2 or math level time, those are now changing to say reading up to time in 1/2 or math up to double time, because we know the students can now move forward with standard timing this class. You can click the link at the bottom to see the full accommodation list of name changes. Alright, looking at the accommodations, on the left-hand side you have all the universal tools. These tools will be available to all students within the Blue Book testing application. So you can see we have mark for review, testing timer, the calculator. Keep in mind that there's no longer a math no calculator section, so all students will have access to an embedded calculator throughout the math section. You can read the other tools that are available on the right-hand side. You have the accommodations that you would have had to request in SSD Online. So SSD Online is going to feed into Test Day Toolkit, which will be fed into Blue Book, into the students' testing app. So if you have any changes to accommodations, once students are in Test Day Toolkit, you're going to have to go back to the SSOR, so the student ordering and registration section, make the changes there so that they can be carried over and pushed into Blue Book. Alright, students cannot change their accommodations on test day. So this is really important. If you have any changes or they want to waive an accommodation, it has to be done before the day of testing. Again, you can see here the accommodations that were allowable that you would have applied for in SSD Online. And be sure to check back in their SSD dashboard. Right now, most of them probably say pending. You'll start to see that they'll switch over to say approved. Sometimes it may be something that you need to resubmit, so be sure to check on that. Alright, and then Dan is going to take us through test security.
Okay, so for those that are returning, a lot of this will sound very familiar, and you're familiar with something I want those who haven't done this before to take special note of right now. If you haven't done this before, and I'm talking about test coordinating, assessment.dallasisd.org, right? assessment.dallasisd.org, and there's a test security tab, and it has all of the resources you need through the year for test security, a few of which I will mention today, and some of you are familiar with. All right. Now, you know, College Board tests, they're quite unique. Every test is unique. But College Board tests, as I said, they're quite a bit different than a lot of the other tests we give. And we started foreshadowing some of the key differences in that last being that SSD meeting, right? The brief talk about test security. Remember I said we were going to keep it really brief. We thought about not even doing it that training. But we want to model what we expect of y'all, is that test security is part of every testing meeting you have, right? You show that you've done the due diligence of getting your staff aware and they know the gravity of the matter, so to speak, right? All right, so let's jump into this. So just some particulars about this test. Okay, unless the students have a particular accommodation, they can't use phones, smartwatches, and other electronic devices, except their testing device, right? And you're going to see, this is mentioned several times in a few slides, because it's just critically important. So right here, let's stop and think about what we emphasized last year. active monitoring 2025. It's not active monitoring when we were young, or 2005, right? It's different. And if you saw the spike in the number of cheating irregularities we had, you'd really take note and be talking to your folks about it, right? Setting expectations, coaching expectations, supervising for expectations, making sure students aren't using the electronic device. Now, last year, we began requiring the student electronic device law. And many folks use, I mean, everybody uses it, right? And many folks like it. Tawanda Fisher uses both. What do I mean by both? What's the second thing I'm talking about? Well, it's an option you have. You don't have to use both. Now you have the option. All right, you can still use both, but here's the option. And where do you find it? Assessment.dallasisd.org, right? Okay, it's a single piece of paper for each student. If you can deal with the paper, then this can lend convenience of not having every kid have to touch the same piece of paper, right? So on this oath, if you decide to go this route, each student gets the piece of paper, and it's English and Spanish. English and Spanish, and we did the same with the electronic device law. Now, it's still required that the proctor read the statement. So it's at the bottom in both English and Spanish, and it's on the log in both English and Spanish, right? So particularly for elementary schools, a lot of them are going to go with the oath, because it's hard to get 30 elementary students to sign a single piece of paper, right, in a time-efficient way. Okay, so make sure you grab that off the website and that you use that for every secure exam that we have. Okay, so detachable privacy screens, College Board does not allow those. External keyboards, obviously notes, books, and other reference materials. Scratch paper not provided by the proctor. Just think about it, every DISD, every exam we give in DISD that's a secure exam, we're the same about scratch paper, right? It's going to come from the proctor, the student's going to use it, the proctor's never looking at it, the proctor's going to pick it up, they're going to get it to you, you're going to secure it according to DISD procedures and protocol, right? Every time we've got to do that. That scratch paper keeps coming up, and it's problematic. We've got to make sure our folks understand this. Okay, headphones, earbuds, or earplugs. That kind of gets to this piece right here. And important, but there's another reference to the electronic device, right? And we know there's a plethora of them, from the glasses to jewelry, we got to watch out for those. Train our folks to watch out for them. This little piece is about hoodies. Hoodies are allowed, but they can't wear the hood during the test, right? So they're allowed, but they can't wear the hood. And then hats can be worn into the room, but they can't be on the desk. And you know how we do it in DISD, most of y'all do. There's nothing on the desks except their testing device and scratch paper and, whatever's applicable to that test that's appropriate for the test. But no clothing, no blankets. It's cold in here. We don't have those on the desk or anywhere where they could conceal something, right? So we're protecting test security. And then we don't have breaches of content is what I'm doing. Okay, remember on this particular test, before we get to that slide, that if you do have an irregularity, first off, you report it, right? You got to do your report. We never hide things. We just report it and get in behind it. And that you report it for this test only in the vendor's platform. What am I talking about? It's the toolkit, right? So in the toolkit, there's a tab for reporting irregularities. That's the first place you report it. And when you're done reporting it there, we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second, then you print out, basically make a PDF of that report, because you're also going to report it in the DISD TISB system, right? Your reporting irregularity system. If you've never done that, how do you do it? Assessment.dallasisd.org, test security tab, there's a checklist that guides you through the process, step by step, what is required. For instance, signed statements are required, right? Signed statements are required. And we'll talk about that more. All right, so let's look over here. So you're reporting two places, and I can't stress enough, College Board tests are the only time you're reaching out to the vendor or the governing body. You'll never reach out to TEA, we do that for you. All right, items permitted during testing. Okay, so what's allowed? Well, obviously, the device that they're going to use to access Bluebook, use Bluebook. A calculator, but recognize that there's an embedded calculator. So your campus is making a decision. Are we going to allow them to use handheld calculators? No, we don't have to allow them. There's been that effective. If you read your manual carefully on College Board, there's no case allowed on the calculator. You know, they have that slide case, right? They got to put that on the floor or out of their proximity. Otherwise, it's a great place to hide a cheat sheet or whatever. Okay. And then external mouse, scratch paper, other than that provided by the proctor, not allowed. Thinner pencil, these are permitted, right? Scratch paper provided by the proctor is permitted. Thinner pencil. And then for EL students, translated test directions and/or word-to-word dictionary. Word-to-word only. Power cord, portable charger, all that backup stuff. Okay. And then remember, we gotta always cover instructional materials. We gotta walk around to make sure all computers are on the secure browser, but we tell our people you can't look at the student. You can't hover over the student. We want to give the perception that you were looking at the monitor. Other than, you know that they're on the secure monitor and they're not watching something on Netflix. All right, yeah. Electronic devices, well, I think we did that pretty close. So let's go to the next thing, monitoring. We gotta coach. First off, we gotta set the expectation, and we gotta coach it for our folks, and we gotta supervise that they're doing it. Last year I went to a school, they were given a test, and I see kids in various rooms using cell phones. And the monitors just planted. I mean planted, right? And it just cannot be that way. Cannot be that way. And on cheating things, we need to look at, was active monitoring appropriate? You, as the leader of your testing program, safeguarding the integrity of your school and your district, need to have that analysis when you find cheating. Was there proper active monitoring going on? Right? And it starts with us setting the expectation and supervising to the expectation. All right, and obviously we make sure students are supervised at all times, and that they don't bring highlighters, rulers, earplugs, dictionary, pamphlets, and papers of any kind. And then we're watching for cell phones and cheat sheets, right? And we're watching, this is a College Board thing to make sure they don't do signals and all of that, but we know that, we're all old school. That's how we used to cheat as we did. And we don't allow them to eat or drink in the classroom, right? All right, so what is this? Well, it's a detailed chart of some specific irregularities and what you do in response to them, right? So if you have a question, I mean, you can reference this in both the PC manual on page 42, 43, or the proctor manual on 65, 67, but it says if this and this, and here's the form, right? If you have any questions, you call me. And that might be, or contact me in any way, and that might be a great way to start. And I can help you on what your requirements are for recording them. All right, and so this is what we talked about the last time, and it simply really boils down to this. If the student hasn't entered the room code, no irregularity has occurred, right? You don't have to record it, you just fix it. And you reschedule them for that day or another day. But that begs the imperative of timeliness. So remember, we have a 1-week window. And if you do, it talks about the scenario here where you would reach out to College Board because there was an accommodation mistake within the platform. You want to do that just as quickly as possible because it can take 24 hours to get it sorted out. All right? So with a tight window, you want to try to test at the beginning of the window. You want to definitely reach out promptly when there's an irregularity and you're going to retest. Here's the other thing this table shows you. If the room code hasn't been entered, it's not an irregularity. But if the room code has been entered, it's either an irregularity, you're going to report it, and you're going to request retest, or it's an irregularity, you're going to report it, and you're not going to request a retest. Again, the retest process takes about 24 hours, so you want to jump on it before they are present on a retest roster within the toolkit. So again, I'm here to help you if you have any trouble with that. But time is of the essence. There's a lot of things in our business are. Okay, so I'm almost done. Here it is. These are the training modules that are required for various roles in your PSAT, SAT testing, right? And best practice is get everybody trained so you have maximum flexibility, right? And cross-train. So if you expect somebody's going to be a hall monitor for sure, I'm going to go ahead and get them to do the module for hall monitor and proctor just in case I have to slide them into proctor, right? So you need to get your folks on this, and you want to get your part done by October 3rd. That's obviously the school test coordinator and in all likelihood for all of you SSD coordinators. So you knock out those 2 modules by October 3rd, and you make sure that your faculty gets them done right about that time, or I should say your audit personnel that are going to participate in the test in any way. Now, also by October 8th, we need to make sure, you need to make sure you have your campus training. So for every secure test in DISD, we have a secure campus training. Now listen. You got to have a sign-in, right? Everybody's got to sign in note. So within the last couple of months, I worked on a case where we didn't have sign-ins and oaths for some folks. And that can't happen. It's so problematic, right? And so what should the sign-in look like? You know what a good sign-in looks like. It has the full person's name. And it has them dated. And they can put their initials, right? But it's not just like a staff list and 10 people initial and maybe, and it's not titled and all that. True, good, solid sign-in sheet. And making sure you've got the oaths, you've got them on hand, and you've reconciled them to make sure you got everybody, right? And that you have them on file, ready to present if needed for a retention document request. So, the last step after you get your campus training by October 8th is to acknowledge that you've done so. By using this QR code or otherwise accessing, like through the TC Weekly, the link to get to this QR code and verify that the training's been done. Yes, sir.
And still doing it.
And yes. Just want to make sure that you've got a good retention plan, right? Okay. And if you do a lot of stuff electronically, really think about that retention plan. That campus is responsible for that stuff for 5 years. Right? So what is your plan as a campus? Are there any other questions or anything? Let me mention something, just last thing. Stephanie Vick sent me the electronic device law, and she just made a slight modification. And all she did was take the 2 columns that say watch and tablet, and she merged those and put pouch number, right? If you want to do that, that's perfectly fine. It makes a lot of sense, okay? Or if your folks just write a pouch number in there.
It was from my school. I don't know how you guys are doing with y'all's pouch. Because y'all have the pouches, right? Okay. If we have pouches, I took 50 on Friday though. I'll put pouches. So they cut. So we numbered our pouches. So if you're taking up the pouches and you want to, in the classroom or whatever, this way your teachers, some of them, even though we put the kids' names on them with like a label, some of the kids are ripping the labels off, but the numbers are on there with permanent markers, so you can still write down. That's why we put the pouch number as like a column. That might be easier for you guys. I don't know. That's pretty easier for us. But I know Rachel put something else. Rachel puts the, like what they have in the pouch might be also like, are they turning in this in the pouch? So that also really helps.
Okay, I really want to thank Stephanie. I want to thank Sarah Robinson. She always shares stuff with me. Tawanda Fisher, amazing, sharing stuff. So thank you all for what you do.
All right, let's talk about CCTF for PSAT, NMSQT, and SAT competition. So in this section, we're going to talk about managing your SAT and registration access. We're also going to talk about the ordering process with Kimberly Ferguson, and we will talk about the actual upload of the registration file, validation and registration, test a toolkit tab, and your student digital readiness test. So what we want to do now, I want everyone to log into their college board account. All of you should have a college board account because you have to have that access. And what I want you to check in your college board account, especially those of you who this is your first year creating, make sure that where it talks about your job function, that you chose, so you would go into your profile once you log into college board. It should say K through 12 test coordinator. It's easy to choose the K through 12 educator, but for this purpose, for the testing purpose, you want to have that test coordinator K through 12 test coordinator. And that's going to be at the top of your account where you go to your profile. Now see all the bets have gone to the dashboard.
So sorry, so sorry. Go ahead. We just, Rachel and I just brought this up and Dave didn't mention it. And this was brought up because this happened quite a bit last year.
So Brian Adams has had yonder pouches going on 3 years now, so we're not new to this. In the case that a cell phone goes off during the test because they forget to turn it off, those pouches are locked. Not every proctor is going to have a magnet to get it open to figure out what pouch that phone's ringing in. The best recommendation is to take the whole bucket, hand it to your hall monitor, get it out of the hallway.
Don't ask questions.
Don't ask.
Just take the whole
They
thing.
can figure out who it belongs to and everything after it's gone.
Even if she said and if you don't already have your own magnet,
You do just raise your hand.
So,
yes.
You get it.
I have a question. So for mine, it says K through 12 assistant, principal, dean. Do I need to switch that?
which is
Coordinator.
12 test coordinator.
Got it.
Where, sorry, this is in your, when you log into college board at the very top, it says, my profile, you want to click that and just confirm that all of your information is correct, your campus is correct, and then it says K through 12 test coordinator in the job.
Is it okay? That's good.
And it looks like everybody is good. So, you square hands.
And then just what?
Everybody good? Okay. So, as CPC, there are tasks that have to be completed beforehand. Is that my favorite program? Okay. They have to be completed beforehand to ensure that the PSAT and SAT digital tests run smoothly. And so what I want, those of you who are new, and just a reminder for the veterans, each step is dependent on the preceding step.
So you see people shaking their head, it takes 24 to 48 hours. So when a step is ready, you want to make sure to handle it then. Because then you've got to wait. It's a waiting process, 24 to 48 hours, before you can go to the next step. So what you can't do is wait right until the end to try to do everything because it's just not going to work for you. So some of the tasks that we're going to talk about, again, will be managing your SAT to ordering and registration access. I'm going to have to double check that to make sure that's good. And if not, we will talk about how to add the different accesses that you will need for digital testing. We'll talk about ordering, uploading the registration file, and validating and registration. One thing to note is for SAT school day ordering and registration file upload will be handled by the post-secondary agency. The TC must validate, so when you do validation registration, you still have to validate and register. That time. Yes. So, yeah, and we're going to talk about this there. So first, there's a couple of activities you want to do. You are going to go now to your dashboard in College Board. When you look in your dashboard under My Tools and Services, you should see the difference. Some of you are going to have a whole bunch because you're doing AP test. So we are going to double check and make sure that your accesses are still correct. So let me see. You need, look at number 5. You're going to need 3 rows. You should have. So if you don't have access, we've got to get you access now. If you do already have access to the systems like you did PSAT last year, if it hasn't expired, go ahead and click edit and extend your date. Because you don't want it, some of you may have only extended it to October 1st, and then October 1st hits, those roles that you have access to will expire. So for those of you who need to update your roles and make sure that the time is extended. I think we figured out you go up to 2 years. And if you don't have access, you're going to have to go to General at the bottom. So when you scroll to the bottom, you'll see a section that says General, and then your organization, and then you're going to find Managing Access to the SSOR. And then you should click Get Access. Now here's where it's going to get fun. You're going to need an SSOR access code if you don't. We may be able to help you if we have the code. That's how you add any role that you don't have. So once you click Add, you'll see this role under your tools and services. So let's take about a couple minutes and do that. Hold on, I got some questions. Yes.
What do we do if that is not an available option?
Yeah. Y'all went to General, and it doesn't say you already passed it. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, there's no longer a school. So y'all, this is what Jared was saying, this is something that's new. If you don't have that SSOR access code, College Board has changed and they are no longer sending it to you. They are sending it to your principals, who get a million emails. So you may check with your principal to see, and the codes don't work. I mean, from last year, the SSOR codes are different. So if you don't have that access, we may be able to help you, but we don't have access to a lot of your campuses. So your principal's gonna have to either reach out to College Board or double check, because like I know Carter just got theirs in his principal report. No, that's not it?
Yeah, it says it's invalid.
Oh, but that's the one. But
That's-
remember, you have to.
So I'm wondering if you just pulled one up from this.
Yeah. You have to make sure you're using the code for that particular one. For the fee. They have to make sure they're using the code for that fee. Each section has its own code. So if you're asking for a code for SSOR, that's one code. But a section, to do AP, that's another code. To be able to teach test, oh, that's a separate. Okay. So that's the fee of SSOR code. You can enter the course. So make sure you got it. All right, did everybody find the PSAT part? Under the managing SAT, suite ordering, and registration. Everybody found that, so you can get access, but you need an SSOR code, right? In order to get, Now, I'll give me 1 second. Give me 1 second, we'll talk about that. Kimberly's gonna talk about those. Yes, ma'am. So then, once you get access to that, so everybody listen up. So once you select the managing SAT suite ordering and registration and you can get access, if you have your SSOR code and it'll allow you to click add, that should now appear in your dashboard. So if it should, once you click it and you add it, then that is now in your My Tools and Services, that information, which means now you have access to the ordering and registration part of College Board. Yes.
What QR code is it asking for us to scan?
No, that,
Disregard.
yeah, disregard that. I don't know, we've got two different passports. I think I linked the wrong one. Yes, I'll fix it. Absolutely. So her question was, how do you know if you already have access to it? And those of you who tested SAT in the fall, in the spring of last year, you should still have access. But you're gonna go to your My Computer Services through the dashboard, and you should, if you have access, you would see that, managing SAT ordering and registration. If you don't, then you have to scroll, which is what I think this means, to the bottom and click. Well, it should still be the service. You went to you or your friend?
I don't want to.
Okay. So Sarah says she got her code in July.
July 30th. Okay, from Concord, from College Board, and there was, FAA organization, ordering, and I'm
In July.
July.
So, if you have access to managing the SAT suite ordering and registration, you're going to have to make sure that you have access to these three roles. If not, you're going to have to add SAT data coordinator, ordering, and then the registration role. So you'll have to add them once you get access. But if you don't have access, we're just gonna have to wait. So those are the roles. So let me the SAT suite order and registration is the overarching, right? That we want added to our computer services. And when we click that, within that, there are three different roles you got. Okay, thanks for that. All right. So.
So we just want to get on your guys' word is very hard to clear. I did an update as of yesterday based on the roll numbers that I received. Please make sure that I come out and do stuff before I leave today. If not, I can adjust that. Your 9th and 11th grade roster, I said that to you a while back. That you have left before you may have to adjust. The payment for that has been transferred to your campus already. We did that last Thursday. So I tried to make sure that I copied you on the email that I sent to your office manager. On the email, it told your office manager, it gave them a link to a spreadsheet that showed how much money was being transferred, and it gave them instructions as to how to receive and do the purchase order and things like that for your board, okay? How it needs to be paid. So this is the main thing that I wanted to say. This year, we had a lot of unpaid invoices. Now, some of them weren't paid, and College Board did admit to them also. Hopefully they corrected that. But there were some holes in some of your accounts. Although some of those invoices are in process, College Board did say they were going to lift the hold for this week so that you could order. So hopefully you can get in today, with the exception of one campus that I know about, but I'm just going to take next week. But because of those invoices, we noticed that the amount of tests that you ordered from 19th grade didn't match the amount that we transferred to your campus. It was a lot less. So that caused a lot of questions. So going forward, my executive director has asked us to reclass any money that is not being used. So if we send you like $4,000 and you only use $2,000, they're gonna request that money back. And they haven't done that in the past, so that's something that they're gonna do. So if your numbers are off just a few, that's not an issue. So for some campuses, there's a big difference between the roster that I sent and what was actually. So are there any, that is the main thing that I wanted to say when it came to ordering. Are there any questions from me?
So you said to the office manager as well?
Yes, that was sent last week. Now, the campuses that had a hold on their account, they haven't received it yet. They will, but we did make that transfer this week, we made it yesterday. I just haven't finished the office manager.
We haven't done it for, say, if I have a student that isn't, on my DSC scholars list, but she's an 11th grader, she wants to sit for it.
And
What?
this is what I say, because I gave a little extra.
Okay.
If you have it, when you said by the end of the week, we should do the whole? No, it should be listed now on mine. Okay, so did y'all hear that? So they ordered for grade 10. You're gonna have to go in and order for your 9 and 11 DISD scholars and add it as an FYI. You have to place the order.
Should see, on the class form, just to make sure my students, I see the 9th and 11th class, but I don't see it. I see the amount for what I registered them to possibly maybe assign them for a room as well. I don't see it possible.
Right, nothing has been uploaded.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so you won't actually see the student.
Okay.
Because remember, each step is contingent upon the other, and then College Board has different windows that open for each step.
Okay, so, and I understand that, I was just wondering, because I thought you said that the 10th grade has been
Well, I
assigned.
put the number in there.
Oh, just the
Already
number.
ordered. Oh, yeah, I placed the order for you,
Okay,
but as far as the uploading of the students, stuff like that, that has to happen.
gotcha, okay. That's
I just
all
want to make sure your numbers are.
Okay, okay. Okay.
The almost, the final. But I'll make that like that. So again, remember what she said is the district has already, you'll see a number for your 10th graders because the district has entered that for the ordering. You must go in to do your ordering for your 9 and 11 as it in DISD scholars.
And the 12th grade.
Oh. Oh. Yeah, for 8th graders, and then you have to go a little, so for 8, 9, you should
For the
be
accelerated,
So your middle school, you should see your 8th grade numbers as well. They're already in, you just need to confirm. All right?
No, that's
So-
fine. Question. So, clarification, so for the SAT, it's, you guys are taking care of 10th graders, so it's the DISD scholars, and then also the accelerated students?
That's a part of the here part.
That's
Yeah.
a different department.
So I would reach out to Vanessa de la Cruz. I do believe that they are taking care of the upload and I guess the ordering part. Because she did say that they were gonna be doing their own upload. So I'm assuming in order to upload, each step, she'd have to add the ordering number.
Vanessa de la Cruz.
Vanessa de la Cruz, yes. So
order your test, those of you, and if you don't have SAT Suite ordering the registration, you may not see that. If you haven't given yourself, remember, you gotta give yourself those 3 rows. If you haven't given yourselves access to those 3 rows, in number 5, in activity 1, you may not see an order button. So if you, your DWCC can help you with that. But once you actually get into that dashboard, if you've given yourself the different roles, you should be able to see the order. And so you would follow the steps of clicking the order new digital test and entering the number of tests that you need, and then confirming the test for which you placed the order. Just as a note, when you first log in, if this is your first time this year into the SAT Suite ordering and registration, the first thing that you will see is that agree, that you have to click accept. And then once you confirm the test for which you're placing, you choose a start date. So whatever day you're going to test, you're going to choose a start date, and then choose the grade for each assessment. Remember, for middle school, you're choosing PSAT 8-9. High school is STEM Squad. And then it also is going to ask you to confirm or edit the contact information for your school, and then make sure you hit save. All right? So for your 9 and 11 scholars, you follow the steps in activity 2. Then on October the 3rd, you're going to see, this is what I think Sarah was asking, you're going to get a registration split file from TC Support. It will contain the list of 10th graders that the district has. You will need, I think, if someone can remind me, I believe last year it did include your DISD 9 and 11 scholars, or you may have had to, Brenda, do you remember? You had to add them? Okay. Okay, so you may have to add those to that list, or you can do another upload if you want to. But you're going to go through, check your data. If you have students who are withdrawn, or like your start off students that are listed, because on the district level, remember, you're between 10th graders. You can go ahead and remove those students from your upload. And you have new students, so it should be pretty, October the 3rd, well, we test the 20th, so there may be a couple of differences we need to kind of manually add into the system, and that's fine. Or if you know that you have the students, you can add them to this file. But you want to go through and confirm your file first, take out those withdrawn, take out those students who weren't tested. Now, one of the things that we ran into last year, some of you already know this, I think with the file that you will receive, that should be fixed, but your column A, testing AI, must match your column B, attending AI. Look at the example of the slide. So when you get your file, it looks very similar to what's on the screen, but column A and B, I think what happened last year is defaulted or removed from it.
Computer function has a full number there that that color is not dated by.
Just confirm that your testing AI and your attending AI match. If not, you can fix it. You can just do a simple copy and paste. And the reason why is because what we found is if you upload without that, it did not attach your SSD accommodations. I think some of y'all are shaking your heads, you remember that. So just make sure that that is correct before you prepare to upload. And these are the steps to upload. You would just, and again, you're going to make sure that you have the rows, the appropriate rows, because you won't be able to do this without them. But you would log into College Board and go to your dashboard. You're going to go back to your tools and services and click that SAT Suite ordering and registration, and select register student. If you've already done the first part, the ordering part, then you would have a yellow button. That's why I said each step configures after the other. So it's dependent upon the previous step. If you have not done the ordering part, you will not be able to do the upload the same day. So I would recommend you
attention to the ordering, because then the upload window starts that week that you get for your file, so you should be able to upload it then. You'll see the yellow button that says upload, and you will upload your file. One of the things, I don't care, well maybe some of y'all did. Be sure to check for data warnings, data errors and warnings. So the process can take up to 8 hours. After you upload, it can take 8 hours to process. You'll receive an email once the upload process is complete. Wait for the email. With the email, you log back into the College Board, go to your SSOR dashboard, and check to see if there were any data errors and warnings identified. If there are, don't click continue with upload. Don't do it. Make sure that you stop, figure out what the errors are that it's saying that you have, and fix the errors before you upload. And so that kind of looks like this. This is an example where it says, in this case, your file has 123 warnings. Do not click bypass warnings. Y'all are laughing. I cannot tell you the amount of people click bypass warnings that continue last year. When you get your file, it's only going to show you a preview of the screen, it's not going to show you the whole file. It'll show you a preview of maybe like the first 10. If it says there are no file errors, continue with upload. But if it says file, reach out to your district coordinator if you have trouble figuring that out. It may be something simple that you can fix on your own before you re-upload. Again, for your upload, it takes about 8 hours to process. If for some reason you accidentally click bypass warnings and continue, there is a way to fix it. And you would follow the steps and say, oops, I uploaded data incorrectly. What do I do next? But y'all are going to do it. Once you upload, about 24 to 48 hours after, you're going to be able to validate the uploaded data and register students. So it seemed like with the previous step, we were registering them, but we were just uploading them. Now you've got to go back once they appear, and you've got to click that register students. You can register students individually, or you can click that register all and register all of your students. Once you validate it, make sure the students are there, make sure you see their SSD accommodation, then you can click register all.
Now, how long before we upload this to the registry?
How long? So you upload first.
How long does that take before we go register? Is that like a
24 to 48 hours. I think each step is 24 to 48 hours.
Okay.
And then you should be able to go in and click. Sometimes it's faster, but most times we found that it takes about this time. At least before. Then you can click that register. So I would just, once you upload, I would just put a calendar reminder, check, or go back and do click register and validation. Why is this step important? Because if you don't register and validate your students, you're going to call and say, my kids aren't in test they do kids. First thing I'm going to do is go look and say, did you register and validate the students? So that step is important because this step is what populates the kids to test their toolkit. If for some reason you have to add a new student individually, make sure you click register and validate once they're showing. Once you add them, make sure you click the register and validate so that they can appear and test their toolkit. Everybody got that part? Yes, thank you for that. So here's the good thing. I mean, not a lot of good things, but we just look for small. The good thing is these are the exact same steps for SAT. So whether it's the SAT fall or the SAT school day in spring, these are the exact same steps. Go ahead.
So on the ordering page, it's giving me SAT school day option. Do I do that now, or is that a different time?
I would, she said it's already showing the SAT. I would email Vanessa De La Cruz and confirm.
So can I go ahead and order my PSAT right now, and then
You can, yeah, you should order. So Kimberly ordered the 10.
You can go ahead and do the ordering for your 9 and 11 DIS scholars and add it.
Okay.
SAT, I'll reach out to Vanessa De La Cruz. And we kind of talked about this along the way of adding or removing students. So once students are registered in SSOR, the test and the SSD coordinators in the registration role should monitor their roster regularly. You can delete registrations if a student leaves, or you for students who may have moved out, or you can add student registrations for students who may have moved to their school, or who may be new to your school. But you also want to ensure that the new accommodations get input into SSD so that they can get approved. Start out students not participating, you can remove those. If you cleaned up your file before you upload it, then you're good with that. And then for homeschool students, if a homeschool student reaches out to the campus that they are zoned to test, the PC should verify that they're within the attendance boundary of the school, and they can take the student's information so that it can be uploaded into SSOR. The campus does not need to collect funds for students who would attend a Dallas ISD school. The district will cover that cost. Okay. I was just going to ask her. Oh, there's So Kimberly, for those homeschool students, I know that the district would cover the cost if they're in their attendance zone. Do you all need to know that they've added those, or are they? Okay. Okay, as long as you have enough of them allowed. And then your campuses have been allocated exams based on your enrollment in My Data Portal and the Dallas ISD and Average Scholar List. Campuses testing homeschool students would need to request additional tests. So if it goes beyond your allotment, then that's when you just reach out.
So that's what PSAT is.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about SAT, but you can reach out. Yeah. Because I'm thinking you're gonna reach out. Okay, I was thinking that.
Too late.
So again, let's review. Remember, each step is contingent upon the previous step. So we go from ordering to the upload to the validate and registration, and this is an example of what that screen looks like. As you go through, you'll see each of the steps populate. If you haven't done something, for example, you see where it says 0 students registered in the middle and it's grayed out, it's because the previous step isn't done. All right?
Yeah, we don't do anything for prepare for test day until step 3. Step 3.
And then the
Oh, that's step 3. Yeah.
the validated register,
Slide.
the last step.
The screenshot. Oh, that is the last step. Prepare for test day.
Oh yeah, so 24 to 48, yeah, that's on the next slide. 24 to 48 hours after you do this last step for validation and registration. So all of these are your ordering and registration steps. 24 to 48 hours after you finish this, your students will appear in test day toolkit. Then you can start doing those test day toolkit tasks.
So step 3 is, that's the validate step? Oh, so step 3, the yellow button is the validate step.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, once you click the validate and register, once you click register students, that's when they appear in your test day toolkit.
Okay. Now we don't do anything with step 3 until after.
Well, you can do it once the budget is. Yeah.
So when we did our split files, to make sure our students, I have to
Get them out.
okay, but they're not in there originally.
They are. Okay. We'll give it right back. Yes. Okay, we're almost there. So I'm gonna ask y'all a whole bunch of questions. and we'll get to those. I know it's a lot, but we will have our support session. So this is where. Okay. Before and on test they pass. So once your kiddos appear in test day toolkit, and this is what our campus here was asking, then what do I need to do? There are some test day toolkit tasks that you need to do. That would include checking your roster. And those of you who have been in test day toolkit, you can confirm with me. You would be assigning students to rooms. You're going to make sure all of your proctors are in there. If you are at the same campus, your proctors will appear. You can just clean it up and edit. You're going to also, this is in test day toolkit where you'll be able to print their student sign-in tickets for use on test day and during the digital readiness check. In order to get access to test day toolkit, test coordinators will receive an email when the test day toolkit is ready. So once you've done all that order and registration side, and your kiddos are in test day toolkit, if you're new, you're going to get an email saying your test day toolkit is ready. You must use from that email, that's the only way to get it, you're going to click the link that's in the email that gives you access to test day toolkit. So be on the lookout for that because it will go to you. You would sign in with your College Board professional account and follow the instructions. As a note, if it is your first time in test day toolkit, it will require two-step verification. Returning users, if you've already been in test day toolkit in previous years, you would just be able to go to the testday.collegeboard.org. Now staff, once you enter your proctors, they will get their own access email when their test coordinator adds them to test day toolkit. Some of you are going to add all of your proctors now for SAT spring as well, so that you can just kind of start making sure everyone has access. That's fine. I know Misty does, I think Stephanie does, a couple of you in here do. But you are going to, they will get their own email. So you want to make sure that you let them know, I've added you to test day toolkit, be on the lookout for this email so that they can get their access. On test day, there are tasks that the proctor will have to do, which is why they have to have their own access. These tasks include taking attendance. They will take attendance through test day toolkit. The script that they have to read is in there. They will share the room and start code that Dan talked about with the students. They can monitor student progress. This is where they will report those IR or those irregularities and a part of their dismissal, confirming answer submission. So this is why you need to make sure that all of your proctors have access to test day toolkit once you get them added. And test day timing group time codes. So test day toolkit will also list each student's testing group code and all their approved accommodations. Based on the requested accommodations in FSD, students are assigned a timing code. So it's going to list that. Students will be assigned, and you might have some students with accommodations who require testing in separate rooms. Test day toolkit includes several group types, which involve combinations of timing and other accommodations that can be tested together. And so on the slide, you see an example of the S1, S2. So these are examples of the timing codes that are assigned to your different students based on the requested accommodation. And then for students testing over multiple days, I'm not sure if you have any of those, but that would be like your TJ approved students with an extra day where you had to request double time. Then that gives you an example of what that looks like. The digital readiness check has to occur 1 week prior to testing. If you wait until the day of testing, it is still going to force the students to do the digital readiness check, which can take approximately 30 minutes. So if we have some time at the end, maybe we'll ask some of our veterans how they plan their digital readiness check, because some of them go through and they make sure the week prior, which all of you should do, that every kid who is going to encounter that digital test on the week of testing has completed the digital readiness test. Otherwise, it is added time onto your test day. And remember, like Dorothy said, you cannot stop lunch for testing. Students will need a sign-in ticket
And we talked about that being able to be printed from the test day toolkit. So if your kiddos aren't in test day toolkit, and you have to wait to do steps, you're not going to be able to do your visual readiness check until those steps have been completed and the students appear in test day toolkit. In the proctor manual that is listed on the one pager, it does give them the exam setup. There is a DISD script. You want to use, those of you who are new, you must use the DISD proctor script. All right? Something that's important is for the digital readiness check, you do not provide room start code before testing. Keep that in mind. And then for sign-in tickets, test coordinators can bring, will need to print the sign-in tickets from test day toolkit for the students to complete the digital readiness check. Students will use the information printed to access Google, but students aren't expected to hold on to the students shouldn't hold on to their sign-in ticket after the digital readiness check. The proctor is going to collect that, and then there are instructions for distributing that in the test coordinator manual.
This next section covers preparing to test, campus planning, room requirements, scheduling considerations, as well as testing staff and duties. So when preparing to test, the test coordinator is responsible for setting up test day toolkit. And so like what was mentioned earlier, you'll add your proctors and your monitors. You will review your final list of registered students. You'll set up your room for testing. You'll print the sign-in tickets. And this should be completed at least 2 to 3 weeks before testing. Also, you're responsible for training your staff, and so we will provide the campus training PowerPoint. So you will need to train all staff who will support the testing. So your proctors, your hall monitors, so all staff that are going to support the testing are required to complete training based on their role. And so this should be completed at least 1 to 2 weeks prior to the test date. And then Felicia talked about the digital readiness check. On this slide is a template for a PSAT and SAT campus plan. And so you can utilize this template, you can change it how you need to for the needs of your campus. But we do ask that you create a testing plan that you can share with your administration. And then that way you can have conversations with them so they can review it and provide feedback before your testing. Also, this template will help you prepare something to distribute to your campus, the proctors, to those involved in testing, so that they can understand what's going on with your testing as well. You will need to work with your administrators, your campus administration, to identify your campus PSAT date. So like we said earlier, you have a window, but you will need to determine on what particular date you will administer the PSAT date as well as your makeup testing. The makeup testing has to be completed within that window. And then for SAT school day for high schools, the SAT school date is Wednesday, October 22nd, and that's a set date that cannot be changed. And then the makeup test date is October the 29th. That's a set date as well. When planning, developing your test schedule, make sure that you review the overview of timing and breaks, and so you can click the link on the slide to prepare your schedule. You want to make sure that you start your testing early enough for a full morning of testing. And remember that tests for standard timing cannot be stopped for lunch and then restarted. So you want to start early enough so you have time for the students to get through the test, or students with standard time, and also they have the opportunity to eat lunch after testing. You will need to post your testing locations and whatever methods you present for your campus at least a week before testing so that students know where to go for testing. If you post testing locations, only post students' names and room numbers. Do not post any personally identifying information. And be extra careful when posting information about rooms with accommodations. Okay, you don't want to post anything that will alert others that the students are in rooms that are testing with accommodations. So be very careful on how you post room locations. When you're planning your schedule for your test partners, allow at least one staff break for partners in rooms with standard time, and then staff in extended time rooms that may require at least 2 breaks. So you can determine, the amount of staff that you have available and how you can plan a staff break for your staff. And then also, be sure to schedule your makeup testing during the PSAT testing window. So that's for PSAT NMSQT. And then for those middle school test coordinators with PSAT 9, make sure that you schedule that makeup testing when that window is closed. On the makeup day, you will need to follow the same policies as those for the primary testing day. Okay, so nothing's going to change as far as security, as far as timing, as far as test administration on your makeup day. And then for lunch, make sure that you communicate with your cafeteria manager. Make sure you have a plan for lunch on that day. You may be, the kids may be eating lunch later than they normally do. Determine what time you need to start testing to ensure that students have an opportunity to eat lunch after testing. And then, some campuses will have stacked lunches. So make sure that you have a plan for lunch at your campus. The chart on this slide gives the staff room ratios. And so for each test room, there should be one proctor assigned to each test room. Besides that one proctor, this gives the number of room monitors needed depending on the size of the number of students that are in each testing room. So if you're just going to have 1 to 34 students, then you would need a room monitor. You would need that test proctor. Anything larger than that, you will need a room monitor in addition to the test proctor. Okay, so every room at a minimum should have one test proctor. Anything above 34 students will need to have a room monitor as well. Okay, so you can look at the chart to see the number of students. And then for students in extended test time rooms, the ratio of students changes. So for the extended test time rooms, you should have 20 or less students per one monitor. And then you have more than 1 to 20 students for each test proctor. If you have more than 20 students in an extended time test room, you need a room monitor as well. And then at the bottom, it talks about the hall monitor ratios. For every 1 to 5 rooms, you should have at least 1 hall monitor. And then above that, the number of hall monitors needed increases. So for 6 to 10 rooms, you need 2 hall monitors. 11 to 15 rooms, you need 3, etc., etc. This slide talks about the accommodated testing rooms, and so Felicia talked about that a little bit. So you might have students with accommodations who require testing in separate rooms, and so when you go into test a toolkit, you'll see the room groups. And so, like for example, S1 is standard time, S2 is time and a half for math, S3, etc., etc. So you will need to, when you're planning, determine how many rooms you need based on the number of students that have accommodations. And test day toolkit does include several group types, and so some of those group types can be in the same room, and then some have to be separated. So that's something you can determine once you are going to test day toolkit and see those room assignments. Students with a break accommodation will take longer than the standard time, and so you'll need to make accommodations for those. So extended and extra breaks as well as the nutrition break for standard time is automatically applied in Blue Book. Okay, so the same thing for students with like longer breaks or additional breaks. All that is automatically applied in Blue Book. The students cannot shorten or skip the breaks that they are approved for, and so all testing groups, including standard time, may include students with accommodated breaks. So basically, if you have students with like extended or extra breaks, they can test in the room with students with standard time, but the teacher will have to navigate, how that works. So some students might finish earlier than others, and then those students, will need to be quiet until the other students finish. So those are things you need to take into consideration when you're planning. Students approved by the school for a reader or a scribe to test in a one-to-one setting. And then students with paper tests should be seated in rooms separate from visual testing. So if any campuses have any students with a paper test, they have to be in a different room from the visual testing. And then the accommodations that are listed at the bottom of the slide, these groups can test in rooms with standard time. Okay, so you can't group them together. So students with accommodated grades, students with small group testing, as long as the test number is small enough. Students with medical devices and aids, students with permission for food, drinks, or medication, students with preferred seating, students with written copies of verbal instruction, and students with assistive technology. They can be in the groups with standard time. if they have these accommodations. And so again, that's something you just have to navigate once you get the student groups and testing toolkit to make sure that you make the accommodations that you need. This slide talks about the roles and responsibilities of each of the people that will assist with testing, as well as the test coordinator. And so you're the test coordinator, you serve as the SSD coordinator, as well as in the registration role. And so of course you will supervise all activities related to testing. You've already submitted accommodations in the SSD online platform, and then you will be responsible for registering and validating all students and verifying accommodations as well. If you have the staff available, you can assign a technology monitor. And so College Board strongly suggests you have a technology coordinator. And so the technology coordinator will work with the students and the test practice the day of. So if a student has a technical issue, then they can address or assist that student with their technical issue. And so that's just to help out the test coordinator, because that technology person can probably go from room to room, or you can send your students to that technology coordinator. So College Board strongly suggests that you have technology monitoring on the day of testing. And then of course you're going to have your proctors, your room monitors if needed, according to the number of students you have per room, your hall monitors, as well as support staff that help assist with our administrative accommodations. And so this statement talks about conflict of interest for test proctors. So test coordinators and test monitors may not serve as staff at the same testing school where a member of their household or immediate family is testing. And so in the manual, they do define what member of household as well as immediate family, exactly what that is. Test coordinators and test monitors may not serve as testing staff at a different location on the same day that a member of the household or immediate family is testing elsewhere without violating the conflict of interest agreement. Proctors should never have a member of their household or immediate family testing in their assigned test room. They may proctor in a different room while the students taking the test in the school on the same day. Staff should not be engaged in providing private PSAT-related assessments or SAT preparation conducted outside of the school or district for compensation. And then all test staff must review and agree to the conditions for participating in individual SAT staff and complete training. Okay, so just make sure that you articulate this to your staff. And we have had situations where, a teacher is working at the same school with their child and their child is taking PSAT that day, or we even have test coordinators where there was a conflict of interest and the test coordinator wasn't able to administer the exam. Okay, so make sure that you articulate this to your staff so that you don't have any conflict of interest situation. Okay, proctor duties. So before the test day, your proctors, your test administrators need to make sure that they read and are familiar with the proctor manual. If they are administering tests to students in rooms with accommodations, they need to make sure that they understand how to administer those accommodations, and especially for exams with extra time, that they understand how to navigate that as well. On test day, proctors should sign into the test day tool kit, as is the link on this slide. And then they need to complete the College Board seating chart. So remember, for College Board testing for PSAT and SAT, you're not using the DISP version of the seating chart, but College Board has their own seating chart. Okay, so make sure they have the College Board required seating chart. On this slide, it also gives the requirements for the testing rooms. So the chairs must have backs. Seats must be facing the same direction. Seats cannot be up against the back wall of the testing room because the proctor will not be able to see students' devices, so they can't walk behind the students. So make sure that the seats are not against the back wall. Students should be seated so that they cannot see each other's screens. The test proctor should be able to have access to every student and be able to easily see them. Students should be separated by at least 3 feet on the right and the left, measured from the center of the desk to allow the proctors to walk through the rows and to reduce distractions. Power outlets in the testing room should be available and easily located. The seating should be arranged so that it doesn't impede access to electricity without overloading the outlets or creating unsafe conditions. Tables that seat more than one student should have enough space for students to sit 3 feet apart. They should have a large, smooth writing surface, such as the desk and table. If you have the desk with the tablet arms, so the little, the part of the desk kind of swings around, Make sure that it has this minimal writing surface that's indicated on the slide. And then students should not be seated on more than one side of a rectangular table or around round tables, study corrals, seats with lap boards, language laboratories, booths, or tables with partitions are divided. And finally, partitions and dividers are allowed only if testing in a computer lab. Okay, so you need partitions and dividers in a computer lab, or if they are low enough so that the partner can see students' testing devices. Okay, so just be sure when you're walking around looking at the test room for testing that all of these criteria are met. And then these are some data testing reminders. So the day of testing, make sure that the rooms do not have physical maps, charts, or other teaching materials. Make sure that the test partner knows where the power outlets are located if students need to charge up their laptops. And then you should make sure that each student has a sign-in ticket, one sheet of scratch paper per student, plus extra in case students request more. Make sure that if you have a room with paper testing or where the partner needs a reading script, that you have a testing room materials report form. Also, make sure that you have a printed seating charts. It's recommended if your campus has been available that you have power strips, surge protectors, sticky cords, or laptops for charging. Make sure that all students have testing devices. And then for your ED students that need the support, make sure that you have the printed copies of translated testing directions available. Also, the test partners need to post the following information on the board or the touch screen so that it's available for students. Make sure that they copy the blue book check-in directions and that the room code is displayed, and they'll find the room code and test a toolkit. Make sure that they have the name or the room number of the health room displayed, and then the test partner should write the following instructions. They should write, do not leave until I finish you. They should also write or type, do not close your device and turn off your screen at any time during or after testing until you see the congratulations screen. So that needs to be posted as well. And then any additional required signing. On the day of testing, the test partner will need to distribute the sign-in ticket and one sheet of scratch paper for each student. And then test partners will also need to make sure that students complete the test and their answers are submitted to College Board. And so you can click the link on the slide to the Go to In-School Testing and Answer Submission to help guide the test partners in knowing how students will submit their test. And so the test partners need to, have a system in place at the end of the testing to make sure that all students have completed and submitted their test.
This section will be really quick. I'm gonna take you home, and then if you have time, I think, Felicia, have time for veterans to share how they do with the right thing. Okay, so in this section, after testing, confirming answer submission, which Shanna just kind of mentioned, and then materials collection, retention. So, other than the testing, other than your proctors going through and making sure that the students submit their answers, we too have the task of ensuring that all students do submit their answers. Although at the end of each student's test, the answers automatically submit, in the event the computer is asleep or is offline, as Shanna had mentioned, that will prevent the answers from being submitted. So, on the first bullet, go into the in-school testing answer submission. There's instructions and guidance on how you as the testing coordinator will go in and ensure that all answers have been submitted to College Board. I think it's basically where you pull up a roster, it will show you the attendance for each student, and then it will show the submission status for each student. So you just want to make sure that all of those answers are submitted. Make Future School is a free app for your students to access so that they can quickly retrieve their scores, as well as get tips on planning for college and career, planning for their scholarships. So your student answer submission deadline is October the 24th. That is the end of that PSAT week. However, you want to ensure that those answers are submitted the day of testing, definitely within the first 24 hours. Score reporting in the portal will be available November 5th. Your student scores will be available on November 6th, and then an electronic score report will be available November the 12th. Materials that you should collect from your proctors at the end of testing day would be any forms that your campus requires your proctors to complete, scratch paper, and sign-in tickets. Those 3 items need to definitely be stored on campus for the first 30 days in case they are needed for test security investigations. In addition to that, you do want to collect and store your seating charts as your yearly retention documents. Those of you who are new, there are certain documents that you will need to retain for each testing administration. For most of them, you will need to retain and store on your campus for 5 years. So during boot camp, we'll give you more ideas and suggestions on how you can better store those items in your campus. All right, Lauren is going to close us out.
Okay. Just a little bit of information about SAT. So if you've already placed your order, put in your numbers in the SSOR, you need to go in and delete them. Okay? So again, for the SAT accelerated testers, if you've already put your numbers into SSOR, go in and delete those numbers. Vanessa will put those numbers in for you. Okay? Sandy will send a split file for you to complete the registration and validation for yourself. I'm waiting on the date for when that's going to be sent out. So I will share that with you.
So we don't order SAT. She's going to do it for us.
She's going to do it for you, but you're going to complete the registration and validation for this. All right. Well, again, thank y'all for being here with us today. I think Dr. Goban wants to say a few things before we dismiss you fully. But again, thank you.
I just wanted to give an update on the course numbers we talked about this morning. The state updated the state course numbers, so we're having to seek guidance from PTA about how to apply them as far as when the respective waivers are concerned. So once we get that information back from the state, we'll share that information with you. So right now, you don't have the course numbers you're using are new, and we're hoping that you can apply the waivers to those new numbers. Have a great afternoon.
Tomorrow with those. Not 8 years, appreciate it. No,